Well, that's not much snow, but I am going to push it. It'll melt out anyway. But what I want to show today is this loader collecting snow. All right, so here's my DIY snow pusher, I guess. It did pretty good on, it was like 4 or 5 inches that I had. And then there were like 2 inches that come down on top of it. And that's what you see here. I don't really need to move it. But I'm gonna just to sort of like demonstrate, I guess, not only the snow pusher, but also float mode. So let me show you something. Okay, first, quick aside here. Um, this is the time of year to figure out what your outdoor cat's movement patterns are. This is all the cat. This is not critters or anything, just the cat. So kind of cool to see that. All right, well, this is what I wanted to show, but you know, these kind of things, I guess, especially with the shadows don't come across, but you know, you gotta like make some room for the dog to go, you know, if you got a small dog, right? So look at that variation there. I'm telling you right now, you cannot just put your loader down and keep the hydraulic pistons pressurized and expect to clear that. You need float mode uh, to get that cleared really well, or probably even with edge tamers, you're going to dig in somewhere. Now here in the driveway, I don't know, maybe a different story. Maybe you could just go without the edge tamers and just tilt the bucket back so you don't dig up stone. You know, everyone's going to have an opinion on this. Everyone's going to do a little different. I like using float and then just try to stay as straight as possible because sometimes you use float and try to turn. You can't really turn much. So what you're seeing here, I hand shoveled this part here, those last 2 inches. It was real light and fluffy. But what you see there is what was left from the first pass with the edge tamers using float mode. So I'll get the camera set up and you just kind of see the difference here. I'll start, I guess, with float mode. Okay, fuel pressure should be good. Let's pulse the glows. Pretty good start. Now it occurred to me while editing this video that I talk about float, but I don't show it. So here's the stick, of course, right, left, back, forward, all springs back to the center position. But float, you can feel it kind of stops and it clicks in that position and it stays until you pull it out. So when I say float, that's what I'm talking about. And what that does, it floats just the loader arm cylinders. So you still have bucket cylinder control and pressure left, right, but it puts those cylinders on the side of the loader in basically, you know, flexible float mode. They can go up and down at will. And then one more edit here. This is showing why I'm not running any 3-point ballast while I'm using the snow pusher. And it basically comes down to, it gives me a little more weight on the front axle and a little more steering control. So in this illustration here on the top, you can see just standard weight on the front is about 1,235 pounds, and that's with nothing on the back of the tractor. But as soon as you throw that ballast box on the back, you end up with much less weight on the front axle. So it's a 318-pound reduction. So I just want a little bit more steering control. And with the snow, it's not like the amount of snow in your bucket is super heavy when you're dumping. So I'm not worried about axle stress when pushing the snow. I'd rather have a little more traction and steering control in the front. And I guess speaking of traction, I have weighted rear tires, and these turfs are really good in the snow anyway. So I don't necessarily need the ballast weight for rear traction purposes. But of course, I'll talk about chains here in a moment. All right, so you can see I've got my bucket level indicator. Man, people make fun of those, but I think it's great. I can have the loader up in the air dumping and turning around and just back up and boom, I know where level is. And when I drop that loader, it's ready to go. Now with the edge tamers on those, what I will do some is tilt it just a little bit forward because the edge tamers do have quite a bit of protection. And then, hold on here, let's see. I am in 4-wheel drive, and then I just start pushing. You can see, well, I'm not sure what it's gathering. There's not much here, but watch that. Look at that loader, those loader arms move. There's a big dip here. Watch this one. Then back up. So that's really where float shines. Now normally I would not have just backed up in those tracks. I would have just pushed, you know, kind of made a loop, because that's just wasted time backing up like that. But there you can kind of see sort of, I really just don't have a lot of snow to use here, but you can see it does leave a layer. Sometimes I'll hold the lever down, but look at those loader arms moving. I mean, they move, man. I really like float, especially if all you're doing is going straight. And then with a little bit of snow like this, I don't even worry about dumping. All I'm trying to do is just push, and I'm really not pushing much. This is not necessarily accomplishing a whole lot, but I do get the demo float. So now I'm going to scrape, and automatically I'm having trouble turning. So I'll go float, get a little bit turn back. So now I'll come out of float, and I'm going straight. So once you're going straight, it actually doesn't matter, you know, if you're up. Hell, my wheels are almost all the way off the ground here now. Or if I just go tilt the bucket and go float, right? I don't need steering control now. I'm going straight. So to me, that's the best way of doing it. So there you sort of see it. I mean, I did not really clear a whole heck of a lot. That gives you a good idea of just how low you can get with the edge tamers on. I was thinking about going without them, but you know, I'm not really going to fool with that. Some people also say that, well, you know, the edge tamers are just going to dig in. Well, you can see they do glide right along, and they would dig in. I mean, if you had soft ground, but it's frozen, right? I had good frozen ground, so sometimes people comment and say, well, here's how it is in the snow, or this works or this doesn't, but not necessarily factoring in your climate. Here's that bump too, there's a dip right here in front of the truck, and you can see the loader contoured to that dip in float mode. So that really worked out, but obviously I wasn't really pushing a whole lot of snow. For this view, I guess I'll give you a little different perspective. I won't go too low on the bucket angle. The ground is frozen, so keep that in mind. If it was wet, I wouldn't do this. I'll go float. Now watch that thing move. So I could not do that without the bucket and float unless I wanted to tear things up. Knowing full well that the amount of snow you just saw was not much, this is a clip from when I first made the snow pusher. It gives you a lot better view of just right off the bat just how much volume you can get in the bucket with those sides attached. Now for this demo here, what I was pushing way, you know, normally I'd kind of take this and push it off to the side and then start over. I was pushing really just for demo purposes. It does reach the point, of course, where, you know, you've accumulated too much snow for the pusher to handle. So now we'll zoom out here and I'll show you from the side. I am in float mode here the whole time, by the way. You can see the steering control, so I come down through there straight, no problem. But as soon as I try to turn, I get a little bit of right turn, a little bit of left turn, but not a whole lot. So that's where really just the value of planning your swipes well, so you can go as straight as possible, works out the best. And that's, to me, that's the best way to use the float mode on the Massey. And then on the topic of chains, here you can see what happens when you have a gravel driveway and you leave a little snow and then you get a melt, partial melt, and then a refreeze. You can see that that snow obviously packs and gets basically turns into ice. So I don't care what kind of tires you're running. If you're on ice, you're going to have a slip and slide, and it's going to be an issue. So that's where chains would come in and be super handy for the tractor. And don't let anyone say like, well, I don't get enough snow to need chains. I mean, chains, it's more about what kind of climate do you have? I mean, you could live in, maybe North Carolina and maybe have a use for chains. They get ice down there, probably more than snow. So that's kind of my take on the need for chains. And then I did a previous video on chains. These are V-bar Peerless chains. And I just used a zip tie there for that extra link just temporarily. And I'm just showing here the clearance I have without wheel spacers on. So I had installed I did later install wheel spacers to give me a little more clearance, but you can run chains without spacers. And then this is just a demo of those chains kind of going forward and backwards a little bit in the summertime, obviously. They do bite in really good. Now, full disclosure here, I say, hey, I really like these chains. I got them 2 years ago. I haven't used them yet. Now, we had 2 really mild winters, and the ice I just showed you in the driveway, I didn't really need to clear snow after that ice formed because we only got like an inch or 2 after it formed. So, but in the case where the ice like that would form and then we get 6 or 7 or 8 or more inches, and I would need to push snow over top of it, these chains would come in real handy. Caveat here too is that the chains are very, very bumpy. And so that's why I don't put them on all winter. I'm only planning to use them when I need them. So I'll put a link in the description for the Peerless chains that I have and just the product number, so you can search them up in case they're not available from Amazon, or I think I got them from Walmart. And as always, thanks for watching.